ARC4 tuples are tuples containing other ARC4 types. ARC4 tuples are great for passing, storing, and returning multiple data types. Just like native Python tuples, ARC4 tuples are immutable, so you can't modify elements stored in the tuple after you store them. Let's go through this contact storage contract to learn how to use tuples. So first thing, we're going to create a tuple type over here that stores three values: an ARC4 string value, another ARC4 string value, and an ARC4 UN64 type. And each of these values are going to represent a name, email, and a phone. And we're going to store that tuple into this contact info tuple variable. Over here, we have a class called ARC4 Tuple, which is the smart contract. And if you look inside of the init method, we have a global state named contact info. And inside of this contact info global state, we're going to store the contact info tuple that holds the name, email, and a phone. But to initialize it, we're just going to put empty values in each of these values. Then over here, we have a method called add contact info. It takes in an argument called contact, and it has the data type contact info tuple, which we defined over here. So this contact argument has to be a tuple, an ARC4 tuple that has an ARC4 string, an ARC4 string, and an ARC4 UN64. Now, once we receive that tuple as an argument, we're going to get the native value, which allows you to pull out the values and assign them into separate variables. So we're assigning those three values into name variable, email, and phone. Now we're going to assert that name.native. So we're actually getting the AlgoPy string type to be equal to the string Alice. Now the reason why you have to pull out the native type is because the name variable is an ARC4 string type, not an AlgoPy string. So if you want to do equal to a string Alice, we need to get the AlgoPy string native type. That's the same story over here for email. We're getting the native type of email and saying that it's equal to alice@something.com. We're asserting that the phone number is equal to an ARC4 UN64 value of 555, 555, and 555. Now, the reason why I didn't have to do a native here is because we're saying this value is equal to an ARC4 UN64 type. Now, after we assert those three things, we're actually just going to store the contact argument into the contact info global state. And you can do that by doing self.contactinfo.value is equal to contact. So we're assigning this value to global state. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to return the native value of phone variable. So this is how you can pass in an ARC4 tuple type and also store an ARC4 tuple type right here. Now, what about returning a tuple type? Here we have a separate method called return contact. And all it does when you call this method, it's going to read the global state contact info, which stores the contact info tuple, and we're just going to return it. And you can see that the return type over here is an ARC4 tuple type that has an ARC4 string, an ARC4 string, and an ARC4 UN64. Now, you could just use contact info tuple here instead of manually defining the tuple. But for the sake of demonstration, I wanted to show you how you can define your own tuple inside of this contract. So that's how you return tuples from a smart contract method. Let's just confirm that this works by interacting with that contract with Laura. So we're going to call the add contact info method, and we're going to pass in the three values: Alice at something.com, and 555, 555, 555. We're going to add that, and we're going to send it, sign it, and you can see it returns the phone number. Now let's try returning that contact info stored in the global state. We're going to call this return contact method, add it, send it, sign it, and you can see that these three values are returned to you in the form of a tuple. So that's how you can work with ARC4 tuple types.